First of all, congrats with Wolfman.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. And first question, actually, kind of thinking about Invisible Man. I almost said Invisible Woman, and I keep saying that to other people. Invisible
Actually,
Man.
a lot of people do say that to me. I think because the lead character is female, a lot of people will say, "Oh,
Yeah.
I loved Invisible Woman."
That was like such a lightning in a bottle moment, it felt like. It was such a genius concept that really modernizes a horror icon. It was a big hit. Was there a lot of pressure to follow that up and kind of almost recapture that magic? I think I read something that you were even hesitant to even do Wolfman.
Yeah, I mean, at first, not because I disliked the character or thought that that wasn't the right story, just because I felt like I had just done a monster movie, so I didn't want to repeat myself, but the thing is, you've got to let the horse pull the cart, not the other way around. So once I had a good idea that was intriguing to me, I realized it would be dumb not to make this movie because an idea that keeps you awake and gives you enough passion to jump out of bed every morning and work on a movie that lasts for a year or more, they don't come along every day. So once I had that initial idea of how I would do this film, that was it. And there was pressure, but it was mainly coming from myself, to be honest. I wasn't feeling pressure from the studio or the producers. I have this like self-imposed inner critic. My inner critic is louder than any real critics could be. So that was the pressure, was just me thinking like, can I do this right? Can I, as you said, movies are lightning in a bottle. They're accidents, they're cosmic accidents. So the idea of repeating that magic trick, it's just not going to happen. So eventually I just had to forget about all the noise and go for it.
We're always our own worst critics. It's like the
Yeah.
artist's curse.
100%. It's something you have to live with. I like talking to other artists about it because I'm like, as a feature film writer, it's a lonely profession. You spend a lot of time on your own. So if I'm meeting another screenwriter or another writer or creative, I'm like, do you have this as well? And I definitely like to talk about that. Other artists are my therapists.
And actually, touching on that with your writing process, so because I know some writers, they sometimes kind of reach out to like really close people around them. Are you like totally locked in? It's just you until it's done, or are there like particular people or resources that you go to?
Um, th- you when I'm writing, it's just me, and I don't like to. I would never want to give someone 20 pages because you don't want anyone to throw you off course. The worst thing that could happen to me is I'm really into something, I'm loving it. I write 20 pages, I give it to someone, and they say, "Nah." Now all of a sudden, I'm like, well, what's the point of finishing it? You know what I mean? So you don't want one drop of ink to poison the well. And I have friends who do this to me all the time. They'll give me 30 pages of a script and say, what do you think? And I'm thinking, why are you doing this? Like, don't let me ruin this. So yeah, I keep it very insular. This film I wrote with my wife, I co-wrote it. So I did have someone else that was working with me, and she was quite harsh on it, in terms of we would both go back and forth about, is this good? Is this authentic? So yeah, but usually very insular. On this one, I had Corbett to really throw things around with.
A lot of my other questions, it's all about the technical aspects, because it's frankly absurd what you and the team have like pulled off with Wolfman. And
Oh,
first of
that's
all,
great to hear.
with like the sound design. I mean, I'm a sucker for sound design anyway, but
Me
what I
too.
love,
Me too.
but like it's obviously so important in the horror genre. It's obviously a key tool of any filmmaker. But what I love that it actually is such a crucial part of the character development, especially
Yeah.
with that one key moment, which I'm not going to obviously talk
Right,
about.
right.
But because of that and how intrinsic it is with the character and their arc, the development, was there any different approaches with the sound design, or is it just kind of keeping in line with what your usual approaches are?
I've always loved sound design like you. I'm a sound design nerd. I love watching films like Heat, and I've seen that film so many times. I'll just listen to Heat. There are certain movies where you can tell the sound design has been treated with such care. So I've always done that, but on this movie in particular, I thought the sound design, as you said, was a character in the film and was actually illustrating the arc of the character. And so I started talking to the sound designers during script stage. And I did something I've never done before, which is I was writing sound design into the script, into the actual into the action description of the script. I've never done that before. So it was a huge priority for me on this one. And I couldn't wait to get to the sound mix. And when I finally there, I walked into the sound mixing room, and I was like, finally, and I asked for more time than usual. Usually I would mix a film in 4 weeks, and I wanted like 6-7 weeks to mix this film. So we really went crazy with it.
Visually as well. I mean, I'm sure there's loads of people already asking about the whole wolf vision and just how you do everything in a kind of one shot. I imagine it's obviously a mix of practical and visual effects as well. How challenging was that to actually pull off in the end?
It was challenging at times on set because there's this dance of choreography. Like usually with actors, for me, you want them to forget about the camera. You want them, they're obviously trying to be authentic. They're in a room and there's all this gear around them and they can't block it out visually, but you want them to live in the role. In the case of those moments, I'm asking them to work in tandem with the camera, which is not something I would ever usually do. And it's a bit of a dance. I'm saying to Julia Garner, when we reach this point of the room, we will be able to understand what you're saying. So I want you to hit this. And, it was a real dance. And it was tough. I think there's one shot in the movie that you would know, the one in the basement, the first time we do the full rotation. I think we did 20 takes of that, which is a lot for a film of this, just because I had to get it exactly right. But then later in post, we would augment it a little with visual effects. The hope is that when people watch it, it doesn't feel... It feels real. That was my biggest hope, is that you're not... Sometimes when you're watching a movie, you can see the shininess of the visual effects. You see a spaceship and you're well aware that it's not a model, it's a visual effects element. I wanted to avoid that in this. So yeah, it was definitely a lot of work from a lot of different departments.
Was there anything that you wanted, like some kind of technical idea that you really wanted to pull off, but you just weren't able to, whether it's because of budget or technical limitations, or did you really get everything that you wanted?
Oh, that's interesting, because now I'm scanning back through my mind to think like, so in movies in the past, like for instance, Upgrade, a film that I made a few years ago, there were loads of scenes in that. Originally, I don't know if you remember the car chase in Upgrade. Yeah. And there is this automated car that he hacks into, and he has that car fly backwards and take out the cop car. Originally in the script, he was being chased by 15 cop cars down the freeway, and many automated vehicles were being hacked into, and it was like they were just flying like missiles. So that was a huge sequence that we scaled down to. I remember the producer being like, I can give you one car. On Wolfman, because it was such a chamber piece, it was such an intimate film with 3 characters, I can't specifically remember anything where it just couldn't happen. I really feel like the scale of the film ended up being right for what we did.
We've got Invisible Man. We've got Wolfman. How are you closing out what I'm dubbing the Red Flag Men trilogy?
the Red Flag Men Monster trilogy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I will admit, people have been asking me this, like, what's your next monster? And I don't have one in the works. I swear, I'm not just lying to you because I've signed some NDA. I don't have another monster film in the works, and Universal hasn't asked me to do one. But for the purposes of answering your question, just as a film fan, I don't think anyone's done a great version of Jekyll and Hyde recently. Not that I've seen. Now, you may be aware of a version of this. Maybe it had a different title that I haven't seen. It could, for all I know, it could be a Korean film that I never... But like, I think that story is so interesting in the duality of it, and especially for a story that was written during that time, and he's dealing with the sort of animal nature of man. If you want the Man trilogy, like, what better story than Jekyll and Hyde, right? I mean, do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm already thinking of all sorts of different...
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm sure that somebody has done a version of it at some point in the last decade or 2 decades, but I just can't, it just doesn't come to mind. And I feel like we have gotten great versions of Dracula, and we have gotten versions of Frankenstein. There's one coming out from Guillermo del Toro. I don't know why Jekyll and Hyde, which is such rich material, hasn't gotten that attention. But if someone had a gun to my head and said, make a monster movie tomorrow, start writing, that's what I'd pick.